Hi, guys. Shauna Hall here to discuss this week's topic of public history and American memory, specifically the Battle of Trenton. There's my abstract. So, a few key points to take note for is Washington, so far leading the Continental Army, has been unsuccessful with fighting the British. So, these are events leading up to the Battle of Trenton. And he has been unsuccessful because they could not match the size of the British army. Additionally, the British used mercenary soldiers from Germany known as Hessians. So there was two ways that Washington had to outsmart the British, and both was the idea of using a surprise attack. So number one is the date, and he chose the date after Christmas in 1776, and then the location. The location is equally important, and Washington crossed the Delaware River into New Jersey as the British never expected an attack with a big river dividing them. Plus, the weather was really cold and pretty brutal, so they never thought that the Patriots would attack. Not only was this a big win for the Patriots, but this was a definite need morale boost that because again, if they've been losing, they needed something to keep them in the game. So the battlefield of Trenton has definitely been preserved over the years, but more from a standpoint of the state of New Jersey, not federal. So I'm going to talk about the New Jersey Division of Parks and Forestry. Real quick, I saw this map, and if I were to teach this to my students, I would teach this lesson. I like this map. I know it's pretty basic, pretty simple, but this is from a British website, and I like that you can see the Delaware River in the map. And he crossed further down, but I like that it shows Sullivan, Mercer, Washington, and Greene. I also like that it says Princeton here because if I were teaching the Battle of Trenton, I would also want to teach the Battle of Princeton along with it, just to show how close they were together. So here is, I'm going to go ahead and pull up this. Here is the New Jersey site. And again, if I were teaching this, I would have my students actually read through this as an introduction. I would actually do this at the beginning of the lesson, not at the end. So there's good information here, and there's pictures on the website of the Trenton Battle Monument. And then there's visiting hours and directions. Also, information to see other historical sites, such as the Battle of Princeton. I put the link there as well. And then the New Jersey Living History Advisory Council. I also got that from this website, which is pretty cool because they offer workshops for teachers and students if they want to come and actually gain more knowledge about the Battle of Trenton. Also, fun fact at the very top of the monument is, of course, George Washington. So, the interpretation of Trenton's importance, I was able to use two resources. One is the book we actually are reading in class, A Respectable Army, and written by Martin and Lender. And in it, they talk about how the enlistments were up at the end of the year. So, December 31st, that was Washington's deadline. So, he purposely wanted and needed to have a major attack because he didn't have, as of December 31st, if he was losing this army, he'd have to retrain the troops. The Hessian troops were actually not drunk. Some people say, oh, they were drinking from Christmas. According to this book, they weren't drinking, but it was actually due to bad weather. And plus, they were relaxed on patrol because they weren't expecting a surprise attack the day after Christmas. So the British failed in two ways. The Redcoats really should have followed Washington when he retreated across the Delaware in early December of 1776 after a disastrous New York campaign, but they didn't. They stopped. The British officers also blamed the Hessian troops for losing the Battle of Trenton, saying, "Oh, well, they just weren't very well trained. They weren't as good as our troops. Our troops would have won." So, and then here's a quote: "The 1776 campaign at Trenton and Princeton may be described as a dazzling display of innovative generalship." So, the next interpretation is an article titled To Cross the River by Edward Lingle. And he has a few key points in there. Washington needed more than just troops and supplies. He actually needed his men to believe in themselves and the cause for which they were fighting. Again, if they lose hope, then they're also losing their purpose, losing their cause. And then Washington's leadership not only led to victory, but would also encourage others to enlist for another year. Now, let's make a connection. So, just like in buying a house, it is all about location, location, location. And so, the article talks about Washington's decision to cross the river was not only successful, but also a very inspirational act. The act that he was willing to lead this group across this ice freezing river into battle. And had it not been for the forging of the river, again, location, 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 Washington's stature as a military commander would not have been memorialized. And one might wonder if the war had ended differently if he had never taken that heroic act. And without that location, would it have been a different ending? So, and then a quote, everything depended on the unity of purpose. And that was the main theme of this article, is what can bring about unity. So I had a thought bubble as I was reading this. This author is making General Washington almost like Hercules, a demigod. And maybe the battle was won because of battle tactics, skills, and the fact that this was a surprise attack, not this idea of, oh, we needed to win, or the idea that it was Washington that led to victory. It could be multiple things. I mean, he wasn't the only general there that day, but he's the only one, the big hoop-de-doo guy that usually makes it into the history books. So the value of a field trip to this location. So my students and I live in Arizona. We will probably not be traveling to New Jersey anytime soon, even though it would be amazing, but highly unlikely. However, I found a few virtual tours online and other resources I could use to try and help my students understand the geographic importance, as well as the actual cold feeling of crossing a river in the snow. We live in Surprise, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and it doesn't snow here very often, as in maybe twice my entire life. So I found these resources that were pretty cool. And so this first one is Washington crossing the Delaware. And I could actually pull up pictures where it zooms in on, like, what does an icy river look like? And it zooms in on, yes, not only his heroics, but also his men. Like, what I could do an assignment on this perspective. Like, I wouldn't want that job. I'd rather have, standing in the front. Or maybe I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to lead the men not knowing if we'd win or lose. So that one was a good one. Another one is a different picture of crossing the Delaware. Most people don't know that there's other paintings, not just that iconic painting. And then this one is from American Battlefield Trust. And this is a virtual tour that the students could take just to see and look around what it looks like today. And then here's another one of just basic information that gives before the battle, during, and aftermath. So there's a lot of good resources nowadays for people that don't live close to the area, even though it is good and there is value to that. And I just wanted to make that connection for you guys that might not be from Arizona. So this is the closest one to our school. It's the Agua Fria River. And as you can see, it's not what you call a lot of water. And so I also would want to compare with my students. Look at the Delaware River. It's totally different than the river that's close. So I put on here, this is actually why I picked this battle specifically, because here we don't have rivers the size of those in many other areas of the country. Even if we do have the Colorado River, but we do have to share that with California. And it's not even still big compared to the Delaware. So here in Arizona, I feel like the students, if they had to make that connection, Washington easily walking across the Agua Fria River. And today, so December, the low was 45 degrees. And that's the low of today. So the high today is going to be 75. So we can't even comprehend here the Christmases that you would have back east. So not only is the location significant, but I also want to make that comparison of those of us in a desert. don't really know what